This is Talk Sports Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham, and I'm delighted to say that for the first time this week, Mr. Mike Porky Parry is here with me in the studio, looking a little glum after Everton missed out on an opportunity to get up to fourth place, it has to be said. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Mike. I think that's a fair assessment. If we'd have got it all sorted out by half-time, as we should have done, then I think we'd have had all to play for in the second half and maybe gone on to an even greater victory. And also, giving the West Brom goal away was very poor because it came from a goalkeeper clearance, really. And it just so happened they had a defender hanging around in the area who'd been on a run upfield, was about to go back and thought, this is interesting, it's coming back in, and bang, he goes and scores.
But surely Leighton Baines and others shouldn't have allowed the cross to be made in the first place.
No, they shouldn't. There were two men over there, weren't they, trying to pin down the guy who put the cross in. So, no, I totally agree. It was... somebody said earlier, I think it might have been your lad Toby, Everton have got to convert draws into victories, and that's absolutely true. If you get that sorted for next season, on top of the record this season, it could be formidable.
Now let's talk about the big talking point for me, which is Leighton Baines' dive, which I couldn't believe. I mean, worse than any dive I've seen really for quite some time. I mean, sort of worse than Gareth Bale, worse than Luis Suarez, nowhere near the defender when he just fell over.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you. I thought it was shocking and totally out of character. Remember a year ago or 2 years ago when Phil Neville was still our Everton captain, he threw himself to the ground while David Moyes was still the manager, and afterwards he apologised to the fans and to David Moyes and the team and said, I'm sorry, I don't know why I did it, totally out of character.
I do remember that, yeah.
I would expect Leighton Baines to do the same thing because, even when you saw it as a matter of course in the progress of the game, you thought, was that really a foul? When you saw it in the replay, it was terrible, it was shocking, I don't know why he did it. But I have to say, Mike, that physical contact in the game is becoming a massive debating point. And
you had a debate with Gary Lineker this morning.
I did. And before I get on to that,
he was being very pleasant to you. I thought.
Well, he was certainly being very specific about the way he saw the Luis Suarez thing. But just about tonight's game, there was an incident when a guy called Reid, was it Stephen Reid, of West Brom. Got into a shoulder charge with either Marillis or Oviedo of Everton. I can't remember which one it was. And, Oviedo just turned around and tapped his shoulder and said it was shoulder to shoulder. Ref said, no, and gave a foul against Everton. Now, that, to me, is indicative of the fact that physical contact's been taken out of the game altogether. And I got into an exchange of tweets with Gary Lineker because I simply put out the idea that Suarez played for the penalty. There was hardly any physical contact, and he looked triumphant and triumphalist to me when he suddenly sat up and waved his arms around and said, I've got one.
With Gary Lineker and others on this one, which is that basically the goalkeeper...
You would agree with Gary Lineker? That's the sort of guy you are.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about Gary Lineker, one of England's top goal scorers, one of the greatest players of all time, and with a forwards mentality, right? If he sees a goalkeeper running out towards him, he knows that if he doesn't score a goal, he's probably going to get a penalty. And that's what everybody has said since the game, that, the goalkeeper gave the referee no choice but to give a penalty. Yeah. Because what was he doing out there?
I saw another clip tonight of Pepe Reina confronting a similar situation in a Liverpool game, and he actually stood on his feet and shadowed the player out towards the corner flag, which I suppose is a better thing to do. But, I mean, for me, it's the reason I was respectful to Gary Lineker is because of the fact that he is one of the great English centre-forwards of all time. He did play for Everton, and so I've got to accept his point of view. But... with the greatest respect to Gary, have you ever seen Gary Lineker tackle anybody? I don't think he ever did he?
No, I don't think he did.
It wasn't his game.
Well, here's what Gary Lineker said to you. He said, oh, rubbish. Anywhere else on the pitch, if you lunge in and contact a player, not the ball, it's a foul. Therefore, you're culpable. And that's his point about the goalkeeper.
Yeah, but the contact was minimal.
But minimal is still contact, isn't it?
Yeah, but it wasn't forceful enough to knock the player over. That's what I'm saying. It was a brush. It was a brush of a knee against a part of the goalkeeper's
but if the goalkeeper got the ball, that would have been fine.
Well, I don't agree with that either. It's like the shoulder charge business. You've got to make your physical presence felt in any situation to try and intimidate the opponent to pull off or pull away or whatever. Anyway, look, I'm not going to argue with Monsieur Lineker.
What about the orange card situation? I think it's a great idea, isn't it?
I think the orange card situation is a great idea, and again, your pal Toby didn't seem to understand that when you reduce the capacity of a team by some 9%, which is what you do if you take one of your men off, they suddenly get better. That doesn't work that way, obviously.
Well, I can understand what you were saying in terms of, over a period of time.
Yeah.
If, for example, you go down to 10 men and there's, 45 minutes or more left, sometimes it can become a bit of a stalemate. However, for that 10-minute period, like in rugby, when suddenly they take a man off, there's a massive kind of, surge from the people that have got full strength and they end up scoring.
I totally agree with everything you're saying there, Mike. I wish I could find something to disagree with. Yeah, but the debate went on to talk about technology in football. Did you realise that this weekend was the first time since the massive, revolution in football to introduce goal line technology was introduced, it's ever been used? And then it was in one of the most obvious cases of the ball crossing the line anyway. Right. So useless. Why don't they just do what I've been saying for years? Excuse me. Give the fourth official a laptop in the tunnel to watch the Sky or BT or whatever, whoever's broadcasting it, ITV or whatever, to watch the television replay, and then say to the ref, Leighton Baines threw himself to the ground. That wasn't, that wasn't
because people always say, "Oh, well, that's not traditional with football. It would make all sorts of stoppages." I don't think it would make any more stoppages than there really are.
Of course it wouldn't. They spend, don't they, once to get a free kick. A team these days spends about 2 or 3 minutes, trying to confuse the opposition by lining up 2 people to take it and all that. While all that's going on, you just got a guy to literally instant replay, have a look at it, and sends a message to the ref through his headphone now saying that wasn't a foul, that was a dive, book him.
The thing that I was amazed by, which I said to Dermot Gallagher, we were talking about that incident at Manchester City, was that all the Cardiff players were jumping up and down trying to protest that it wasn't a goal. I mean, there's nobody told them they've got a machine now. Exactly. That actually says it doesn't matter what you think, because we're going to now look at the machine and it's going to tell us whether the ball went over the line. Yeah,
I totally agree. There's a lot of work to be done in getting football straight, and the point is it doesn't help when people like Leighton Baines, who, by the way, is a magnificent guy, and I've met him on several occasions. He's a wonderful, iconic Evertonian, as Roberto Martinez talked about tonight, because there's negotiations going on to renew his contract.
Oh, have they not done that deal yet? I thought they had.
I think it's in the process of being done. Although, I meet Manchester United people who are still mouthing off like this. I'm indicating now a mouth with my hand going up and down.
Yes, I can see that. Yeah, you don't have to explain it to anybody who's listening, because they can't see it anyway.
No, I know, to the benefit of our listeners, that's right. That they think they're still going to get Leighton Baines. But now, because Leighton Baines is obviously, deep in negotiations with them to renew it, now the old pro-Manchester United mob have turned their sights on the right-hand side of our defence to young Coleman rather than Leighton Baines.
Well, they're going for anyone at this point. I mean, David Moyes was out on his European tour a little while ago, visiting all sorts of stadiums all over Italy and all the rest of the place.
Of course they would. It's all kicking off for United. There's one of the headlines tonight on the back of the Mirror, the fact that they're going to miss out on a lucrative close season tour if they have to play a qualifier to get into the Europa League if they win the League Cup.
Which nobody really expects them to do anyway, do they?
Well, I wouldn't have thought so, no. And then all sorts of other, headlines about...
Van Persie he's got a problem with.
This Van Persie one's great, isn't it? Because, what you revealed... somebody said that Everton players have had significant injury problems the last 2 or 3 years. Yeah. I don't think they have.
Yeah, well, that was Toby once again plucking that one out.
Yeah, I don't know which dictionary this boy's working from. Mind you don't find facts in the dictionary, you find the spelling of words. But, you understand what
I know exactly what you mean, yes. Yeah. But, certainly it has been said that David Moyes, when he first went to Old Trafford, was introducing a different training regimen from the one that Reddy Mullenstein used to run, because Sir Alex Ferguson didn't really have anything to do with it. He just used to leave it to René and the backroom staff. He got rid of all of them, brought in all these people from Everton, and Robin Van Persie's been injured for most of the season ever since.
It's amazing. I went to a United training session once. What happened was we were doing some sort of promotional thing at Old Trafford, and it was in the days when United had their old training ground, which is called the Cliff, not the current one, which is called the Carrington. That's right, where City are as well. And
although it's now being sponsored by somebody, I think it's got an even different name.
Yeah, I think it has. Yeah. Anyway, the Cliff got flooded because it was a terrible training ground. It was potholes and all that.
I think Martinez, by the way, was moaning about West Brom's pitch. He said that the way the pitch cut up in the second half meant it was very difficult for Everton to play their normal, full-flowing style of football.
Well, Roberto knows about it, and anyway, so they brought the team to Old Trafford to train on this particular day, and Sir Alex Ferguson never moved a muscle. He literally, just stood on the sidelines. Everybody else was. I think Ryan Giggs seemed to be taking training that day, but whatever. Talking about West Brom's manager. Yeah. What about this for ridiculous? So West Brom's manager, the new man, is a Spaniard.
Yeah.
Roberto Martinez is a Spaniard, right? So, did you hear the announcements at West Brom's ground during the game?
No.
Were read in both English and Spanish. Why would you read out announcements in Spanish in an English football ground? Have we gone completely mad?
Yeah, I know. Well, we talked about this last week. It's a global game. Yeah. Most of the players are not English that play now. I don't have a problem with that.
But it's for the fans. fans. It was about getting away afterwards, and home fans, away fans. I mean, I didn't. Last time I looked, or last time I was at Goodison Park, I didn't see too many Spaniards following Everton.
No. Well, maybe it's all changed now because you got half of the Barcelona contingent
and
coming
certainly
over.
In the Black Country, the boing boing country, you don't see many Spaniards around there. That part of the world.
Well, maybe with all of these Spanish managers being brought in, you're going to get an influx of Spanish fans who want to come and see how they play.
Cuanto para mucho, mi amores. I mean, what's going on?
Yeah, that's still the only Spanish you know. What about? Here's one more final question. So, what about Lukaku cutting off all his hair?
Well, I'm not sure I like that.
Now, you had a go at Barkley for cutting all his hair off the other week.
I did, yeah, because I thought he looked like a skinhead, and that can be an aggressive sort of front to give to somebody. But with Lukaku, I thought he looked so good with his dreadlocks, right? And he cut them off. And do you know what? I was on the phone to a couple of my mates. We couldn't even recognise him. Yeah. Didn't. Excuse me.
You're feeling all right?
You
get a glass of water for Mr. Parry. That's some more medication.
No, what I was going to say was, I didn't even know it was Lukaku. Never seen his face.
He hasn't
like that
scored
before.
For a while either. Could be a worry.
I think it's he scored 8 in his first 9 games, and he's only scored 1 in his last 9 now.
Do you remember what happened to Fernando Torres when he changed his hairstyle?
Fernando Torres, never the same again.
Well, he used to have the blonde hair,
yeah,
and he suddenly lost the blonde hair and cut it all off.
Never the same again. I totally agree with you, and I don't think it's something you should mess around with. I really don't, because I think your persona is defined a lot by your look.
Persona.
For instance, with his dreadlocks, I thought he looked incredibly menacing. You know what I mean? Like a sort of Bob Marley type figure. Not menacing.
He wasn't very menacing at all.
Who?
Bob Marley.
Well, he
wrote some very nice songs.
He was under the influence of ganja most of the time.
But he wasn't menacing, though. He wouldn't describe him as menacing.
No, what I mean by menacing
is... You sure you don't want to lie down?
No. What I mean by menacing is not sort of, this man is aggressive and he's going to hit me. I mean... mysterious.
Oh, yeah.
In the sense that, the dreadlocks...
So nothing like menacing.
And the Rasta style persona and all that. Yes, of course it's menacing. And then you think, wow, this man is a sorcerer. You know what I mean? Because he looks like a magician and he looks like a wizard and all that kind of stuff.
Really?
And I think that's the image that Lukaku gave over, the man of mystery and trying to actually specify his identity. And yet when you cut your dreadlocks off, you're just like everybody else. So you're not different, you're not special, you know what I mean? I wonder if it was something to do with his ability to head a ball. I wonder if the dreadlocks get in the way.
Yeah, maybe. Very possible. We may have to scientifically analyse that. Yes. We shall see. Mike Porky Parry is here. I'm Mike Graham. We are the two Mikes. The podcast will be available, hopefully, in a few hours' time. We'll have more coming up next. This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. He is Mike Porky Parry. We are the two Mikes. We've got loads and loads to talk about. I got a text here from somebody, actually, Mike. I must tell you about the business of that dive by your man, Leighton Baines, saying that he's an Everton fan and he's very embarrassed by it because he thinks that he thought he had more integrity.
Yeah, well, I did as well. As I say, I met Leighton Baines on a couple of occasions. Very, very smashing fellow. Very natural, without any sort of side to him, and not the sort of guy I thought. You see, when you're good players, you don't have to do that, do you?
Well, you shouldn't have to. And he's supposed to be England's left back. We want to be England's left back. Yeah. And I mean, I know that there are others who play for England who are similarly inclined to dive, but we don't really want a whole team of them, do we?
No, we certainly don't. By the way, talking about teamwork and all that, did you get together with your kids as a team and put that aeroplane together?
I did, actually, yeah. It was not until it was about Sunday afternoon by the time. It was a very busy weekend.
Would you like to explain to our listeners exactly what aeroplane I'm talking about here, would you?
Yes. Well, this was something that you bought belatedly as a Christmas present for the kids, right, which you gave me last week, and I presented it to one of them who was actually having his birthday last week.
And passed it off as your present?
I did pass it off as my own present,
I mean, that is a disgrace, honestly.
But they were quite excited about it.
Disgraceful,
well, never mind.
Individual.
We've already talked about it. It doesn't matter. That's all in the past. The point is,
not the past to me.
I've never had one of these planes before, right, and they're quite complicated pieces of machinery.
This is a remote control plane.
A remote control aeroplane. I was expecting, like those boats that I used to see people, firing around the Vale of Health in Hampstead and stuff like that. I expected it to be made of metal, right? Do you know what it's made of?
It's made of, like, polystyrene.
Yeah, it's made of polystyrene.
Yeah.
It's a polystyrene plane.
Yeah, well, that's what they are.
Well, surely it should be a bit more solid than that.
No, because it needs to be picked up by the wind and all that kind of stuff. It's quite simple. You put a motor in it, you've got a handheld remote, you send it, and you tell me that the first thing you did was head it into a tree.
Well, actually, what happened was this. I spent a bit of time putting it together in very complicated instructions, right?
Rubbish.
In all sorts of different languages, right?
Rubbish.
And English,
it's a body with a motor in it and 2 wings.
Well, it's got a propeller. You stick 2 wings on it, and then you have to put the batteries into the remote, which is easy enough to do.
Oh, blimey, that's really complicated.
Well, no, it's not
how
complicated.
did you work that one out?
Well, I I got my son to do that because I like them to help me out, right? We took it up to the field, and the strangest thing happened, right? Every time I managed to get it to work. It's a bit of a fiddly remote thing,
right?
But you have to hold it down with your right hand and mess about with your left hand. And then you kind of put the throttle on full, and the propeller starts to go round.
Yeah.
And then
that's what propellers do, actually.
Yeah,
and
then you throw it, basically, and you hope that it sort of takes off. And every time I threw it, the motor was cutting out, and it was diving straight into the ground. So I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll throw it straight up in the air and see what happens then. And it did say before, don't do it anywhere near trees or buildings. And it also said you should take out insurance before you even fly the thing, right?
Which is in case it hits somebody?
Well, presumably, yeah.
That's ridiculous.
So anyway, I didn't take out any insurance because I'm in a field where nothing is.
What sort of world do we live in?
I know. So I threw the thing straight up in the air, and it did a kind of a figure of 8 and landed straight in this tree.
It went into a tree?
So high up the tree that I had to find a huge stick to try and get it down. So I spent most of the trip...
Why didn't you send your son up the tree to get it?
Well, because it's too dangerous. It wasn't a tree. It's not a tree you could climb.
Children should climb trees all the time.
No, it's not a tree you could climb. It was very... You've
got to have some risk in children's lives.
No, but the branches were not the kind that could support the weight of anybody.
If it was that sort of height, it's stick, why didn't you get your son to stand on your shoulders? Standing
on
the shoulders of
giants. I had to find a stick that was literally about 15 feet long.
15-foot long stick? Where did you find one of them?
I was in the woods.
You don't get sticks 15 feet long.
There are now, because there have been so many storms that loads and loads of branches have fallen down. I had to find literally a bloody great branch off a tree.
When I was a kid, my mum used to do the washing on a Monday, and...
only on a Monday?
Yeah, he had a washing line, and we had what we call props, you know what I mean, which to hold the line
up.
Oh, yeah,
like a stick, yeah.
Yeah, and that was my first attempt at trying to... I tried to do the pole vault over the back wall of our garden. But all I did was smash up the...
you went straight through the fence, presumably, did you?
Well, it was a brick wall, and I smashed into the brick wall and cut on my face and smashed the prop into and broke it. My mother was rather annoyed because also a bit of it was still connected to the washing line. It brought the washing line down, which had washing on it at the time. So that was my initial attempt at becoming an athlete.
So you decided that pole vaulting was not for you, in other words.
I didn't realise that poles in pole vaulting actually bend, and then
of course they bend.
And then it's the force of the unbending of the pole that gets
you never watched pole vaulting?
Well, yeah, but not closely enough. I thought what you did is you ran, stuck it in the ground, and then did a sort of 180-degree sort of loop over the wall.
Well, you obviously weren't paying attention.
I smashed straight into the wall.
Yeah, and you also have to put the pole into a sort of a pit because otherwise it slides.
Yeah, I found that out as well.
Anyway, I found out later on because I said to the kids, well, this has been all right. It's been a good experiment. It did say in the instructions, you just have to keep practicing.
Yeah.
And so I went back and I was told by somebody else
who was
reading.
Practicing, even if it takes you 3 days to put the batteries in.
Reading the instructions. Apparently, what I'd failed to do was to attach the antenna to the remote control, and also what I'd failed to do was to charge the thing. Apparently, you're supposed to charge. I mean, what sort of new thing do you have to charge for an hour before you use it?
I don't know. Everything. If you've got a camera, a little Sony camera, handheld camera, you charge that for an hour. Any electrical device you get, you charge for an hour.
Well, I didn't think it was going to be this complicated.
A new phone, you have to charge.
I'm beginning to wish you hadn't bought me this bloody plane now.
I didn't buy it for you. I bought it for your children.
And they can't operate it. I have to help them with it.
You're such a deadbeat dad, you can't even put it together. Who found out that the antennae was missing?
What?
Who found out the antennae was missing?
Well, that was my other half who found the antenna was missing.
Oh, there you go.
She was reading the instructions properly. But I didn't see that.
I don't know. I despair. Honestly, Mike, despair. Anyway,
I'm going to have another go next weekend, and we'll see if I can get it going.
I don't know how you had time to start playing with this aeroplane, because you told me when I spoke to you on Saturday morning you were going out searching for a dog.
That's right, yeah. Well, not searching for a dog. I'm buying a dog. The kids are going to get a pet dog.
The old expression for you has come true. The old political expression in Washington, D.C. If you want a friend, get a dog.
Yeah, well, that's true.
So you're getting a dog.
That's true. Getting a dog, not necessarily for me, but more for them, you see. But you have to do these things the right way. So I had to go to a breeder and get a dog from a breeder, and so they wanted to meet everybody and make sure that the dog was going to be in a nice, happy home.
How much does the dog cost, by the way?
Quite a few £100.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, quite expensive.
And it's a Labrador.
It's a Labrador,
I like Labradors. I had a sort of a pet Labrador, sort of, adopted.
What do you mean you sort of had a pet Labrador? Either you had one or you didn't have one.
No, we had a chap here who was visually impaired, so he had a guide dog.
Oh, you mean Chip the guide dog?
Yeah, Chip the guide dog.
Yeah.
No, it was his predecessor, Brandy.
Oh, Brandy. Was Brandy the one that threw up on Alan Sugar's shoes?
Yes, that's right, yeah. Because I used to feed him... yeah, it's true.
This was when in TalkSport the kitchen was a place that, unless you wanted to contract some kind of horrendous disease,
that's right,
you would never go.
Well, it was a long time ago, and delighted to say that position has been rectified in a big way. But what I was going to say was... I used to feed Brandy food. Yeah. I mean, ridiculous amounts of it. I didn't realise what you fed dogs, so I'd go and buy a box.
Well, they'll eat basically anything if you give it to them.
I couldn't believe it. I'd buy a whole box of Bonios, and I'd give them all to Brandy, and he'd just keep eating, and they'd never stop. And then occasionally, unfortunately, it would all come back up.
Well, no wonder he was sick then when sugar came in.
The thing is, I thought for ages that Brandy loved me because he must have picked up the vibes of me being a really decent human being.
Yes.
And whenever...
They're very intelligent dogs. They can pick up on that sort of thing.
Yeah, whenever his door opened, his owner came in, Brandy bounded across the room, leapt over desks just to get to me, paws up on my shoulders and all that. I thought, this dog really loves me. It's so affectionate, you know. It can get my vibes as a good human being, because dogs can tell.
No, they can also tell who brings in the Bonio biscuits.
Hang on, dogs can tell if you've got to have a heart attack, for instance, you know. They're very good at that. And all this sort of stuff, or if you're going to have a stroke. Always look at your dog, and if your dog's acting a bit funny, I'd get off to the doctor as soon as you can. No, seriously.
That's a ridiculous thing to say.
No, dogs have got premonition. Dogs can tell if an earthquake's going to happen.
They can tell if there's an earthquake coming,
in 3 weeks'
time.
Well,
3 weeks they can't, no, but they can always tell just before it happens.
Yeah, well, you know, they can see it's going to come from the centre of the earth, and it can take sometimes 3 weeks to get up there. But anyway, look, point of my story is... I didn't realise that Brandy only really loved me because, as you quite rightly say, I brought in all the old Bonio biscuits and lots of other things. Yeah. You know, these little meat strips that you get and all that kind of stuff.
But that's the problem. If you leave a dog, you know, like if you've got a cat, for example, I've had cats in the past. If you leave a cat enough food for a week, it will actually, you know, take a week to eat it. It will take a little bit of time because cats are able to do that. If you give a week's food to a dog, it will just eat the week's food straight away and die.
Apparently, Labradors are the worst breed to do that. And there's one particular Labrador, and I think David Blunkett had one once. You know, obviously, it's very difficult for you to monitor a dog if you're blind, although it should be trained properly and all that kind of stuff. But they just never stop, and they'll start eating other things. I had a girlfriend once who had a Labrador, black one, and his name was Hector, and he was a black one. He used to eat everything, her shoes, you know, her coats, her cushions.
Particularly if you leave them in all day.
Yeah. Well, that's a mistake she made. And in the end, I said, no, we're not doing this anymore. You have to bring the dog to work or get somebody to mind it and walk it during the day. It was cruel. It's cruel to leave a dog at home on its own.
It is.
Because dogs love human beings. They love human beings more than they love dogs.
That's true. And there won't be any plans to do that at all. So thank you very much for the advice. Mike Porky Parry and I, Mike Graham, back after this.
Talk Sport, on air, online and on TV at Freeview Channel 723.
Crazy, but that's how it goes. Millions of people.
This is Talk Sport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. He is Mike Parry, and we've got a lot more to talk about, Mike. While we're on the subject of animals, by the way, have you ever heard of goldfish growing up to 1 foot long?
Rubbish.
Because I thought that was absolute nutter nonsense. We've got some fish over the weekend as well, right?
You got some fish?
Got some fish as well. The kids are at that age now where you get them, you know, animals to have as pets. They've never had pets before.
Have you got like an aquarium box? No.
It's got a fish tank.
A tank, that's right, yes.
Not an aquarium, Excuse me, my man. Do you have an aquarium box for me? It's a fish tank. But, you know, nowadays you have to buy the fish tank, you have to buy the water filter, you have to buy all these chemicals.
And the fish die if you don't look after them properly.
Oh, yeah, I know.
If you don't clean the water out, you'll wake up one morning, come down, your kids will be in tears because those fish will be floating on the surface all dead.
But I'll tell you what, when you go and buy these fish, it's like trying to buy a gun. You know, I mean, they won't sell you more than 2 goldfish per, depending on the size of the tank, and they've got loads and loads of fish swimming around in this thing, right? Then they said, the reason we can't sell you too many fish is because it stunts their growth if there's too many of them in the tank, because these... And I said, well, how big can these fish grow then? And literally goldfish like that size, about 2 centimetres long, 4 centimetres long.
So, sorry, do you mean 2 inches or 4 inches long?
2 centimetres or 4 centimetres.
Sorry, why are you using foreign language to me? I'm English. Why don't you speak to me in English?
Centimetres is what things are measured in now.
No. In this country, our measurements are in inches.
Well, no, they're not, because the tank is a 24-litre tank, OK?
Yeah.
It's not a 24-gallon tank.
Well, you shouldn't have bought it. You should have said, I want an English tank with English gallons in it.
No, because I don't live in the Victorian era like you do.
I'm sorry. Do you know what? Down at my place in Portsmouth, I'm constantly writing letters to the local paper about the fact that when you walk along the front, all the signposts indicating where the tourist attractions are in kilometres.
Yeah. Well, that's because people are coming off ferries, isn't it? From France. They're visiting.
Well, they might be, but when I go to France, I do not see measurements listed in miles,
do
I?
You don't, because they use kilometres.
Exactly, and we use miles.
Well, we use the metric system.
Inches,
well, no, we use the metric
system.
No, we use the metric system for everything apart from distance.
Rubbish.
Actually.
Not.
Yes, we do.
Oh, really? And how often do you go into a pub and order half a litre of beer?
I don't order a half a litre of beer.
Of course you don't. So you've just contradicted yourself, you numpty.
Well, that's the only place that you will buy a pint of anything.
Oh, well, hang on, you don't
buy a pint of milk anymore. You don't buy a pint of anything else.
Of course you buy a pint of milk.
No, you don't.
Yes, you do.
No. Well, we're not going to just go, yes, you do, no, you don't. Anyway, the point is, I'm talking about fish.
Right, go on, yeah.
And the fish, they said, if you don't allow them to grow naturally, they will have some kind of deformity as well. And they'll grow, I don't know, a couple of ears or something like that, because they won't have enough room to grow properly, right? So they claim that goldfish can grow up to 1 foot in length.
And how long is this tank?
Well, the tank is about a foot wide. So, I mean...
So it couldn't turn round?
It would be able to... you just wouldn't be able to do anything. But I've never heard of something so ridiculous as goldfish growing.
I mean, surely... Goldfish? That sounds more like a carp.
Well, a carp is a big goldfish, right? So these are not carp.
I didn't know that.
Well, they're similar related, similar genus, I think.
Right, OK. I mean, I just don't get this. Dogs, goldfish, you know... I mean, what are you turning your place into?
It's just... kids get to a certain age... A menagerie.
Menagerie, that's what I was looking
No, I'm not
for,
turning it into a menagerie.
Yeah,
Kids of a certain age need to have pets because it helps them, understand death.
Is it true? Is it true? I mean, you must have explored this because you say you've got to be very responsible to have goldfish.
Yeah. That
a goldfish's memory is like 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, I don't think it's even that long.
Right. So fish...
Slightly shorter than yours.
That's very funny, that.
Well, you can't remember very much these days, can you? There are things you don't remember. You didn't remember making that DVD.
I tell you what, some people who you've just accused me of being a mentally subnormal individual.
No, I have not.
And I'll tell you what, you get yourself into trouble saying that.
That's
to some
certainly
people.
not what I said. I just said your memory.
I'm not going to sue you on this occasion.
I just said your memory is just not very good.
So when you see these little goldfish in these bowls and their mouths just going, it's just opening and closing. I'll just give you an example of it. Ooh. Oh,
yeah, that's right.
Right.
Very good goldfish impersonation.
What that fish is actually saying is, oh, this is a nice place. Oh, this is a nice place.
I've never been here before.
This is a nice place.
I've never been here before.
Yeah. Oh, this is a nice place. Oh, I've just discovered a nice place. Oh, this is a nice place.
Yeah.
So it's got a completely blank memory after 1 second.
It would appear so.
Well, how do we know this, though?
Well, because scientists do research into such things.
How can a scientist possibly interpret the thinking process of a goldfish
Well, maybe they've
brain?
given it a quiz, I don't know.
Well, they haven't given it a quiz. You see, you've fallen for this one like everybody else. It's impossible to know what a goldfish is thinking. If we knew what a goldfish is thinking, we'd know what a dog was thinking, and we'd be able to get dogs to talk.
Well, they don't even know what people think, I suppose, do they?
Well, that's right.
Well, maybe it's not true then. Maybe it's one of these myths.
Well,
it's an
urban
myth.
What I'm saying, but you've completely fallen for it, because when I asked you, you said quite authoritatively, yes, it's less than 1.5 seconds of memory of a goldfish.
Is that what I said? I don't remember.
Yeah, you did, yeah.
Well, why does it bother you how long a goldfish can remember anything
because
for?
I think it's cruel to keep an animal in a little
bowl.
All
I'm worried about now is that I'm going to get a call one day to say the fish have died.
Well, that's going to happen. Yeah. That'll happen unless you look after them properly.
Yeah.
Unless you get the absolute temperature of the water right, the temperature of the room is right, the filtration is absolutely spot on, the food is measured to the last ounce.
They told us you're only supposed to give a piece of flaked food the same size as the fish's eye. Which is barely even... You can barely even see something that small.
Ludicrous. Or for instance...
And I remember having... I mean, I never actually had my own fish. I remember people having fish when I was younger.
I never got them from the fairground.
And there was none of this kind of scientific stuff.
No, I never got them from the fairground. But, I mean, it's always worried me, this is why I wouldn't have a fish, that actually, if that goldfish's memory is even an hour... then the poor fish must be mental. All goldfish must be mental.
Why?
Because they're confined in such small spaces. Like when you see these terrible stories about, lions and elephants and confined in very small spaces.
You wouldn't get one of them in a fish tank.
Well, no, but they eventually go mad, and a fish tank is very much more condensed. And I always feel that those goldfish are probably, mental because you see, the thing is, they're not bright enough to work out that the edge of their world is glass. So they are constantly... You see goldfish and they're constantly bumping their nose against the glass. Yes, they are, because they would like to go further. But they don't realise that they can't. They think there's a force shield around their, around their sort of their space. They don't realise what glass is. They don't know what glass is. And so they're constantly, frustrated.
How do they know what a force field is then?
Well, they don't. But I mean, what I'm saying is they realise at some stage they can't actually go any further.
Well, that would back up the fact that they have no memory because they keep doing the same thing over and over again. That's either the act of somebody who's insane or somebody who can't remember anything.
Or it could be indicative of the fact that they have an exploratory mind who would like to go further.
Yeah.
Are you going to put a load of rocks and
yeah, they've got loads of stuff like that. Gravel, a plant. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. A plant and some seaweed and all that sort
of
stuff.
And a rainbow,
to make it more
a rainbow to swim through. Yeah.
A rainbow to swim through. Oh, that sounds good. Okay,
it's nice.
Well, that's not
and
too
I've said
bad.
to the people in the pet shop, I said, well, if it grows any bigger than the tank, I'll just put it in the pond. They said, yeah, you can do that, but then you have to clean out the pond.
You've got a pond.
I've got a pond. Yeah.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah,
Are there any fish in there yet?
No, because it's a bit mucky. The pond. It's would be kind of drenched.
Yeah, well, I would get it sorted. So you started collecting goldfish, you started collecting animals, you started collecting dogs and all that kind of thing. Did you read about that guy, Lord McAlpine, who's
he collected some very strange things. Police truncheons, amongst other things.
He had I read his obituary today, God rest his soul, and sorry, not making any political judgment, but, somebody dies, it's always sad. And I read this obituary in the Times. He had the strangest idea, to collect things, and he changed it all his life. For instance, as you quite rightly said, he had 900 different police truncheons from around the world.
I don't even know where you would get those from.
Well, but how would you keep
would people
them?
start sending them to him or something?
I have no idea, but he used to collect the strangest things.
He was an art collector as well, wasn't he?
He was an art collector, but then he went off into some really, really weird things he collected. The truncheons, sash cords from hundreds of different examples of window curtains.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what would you do with all them?
I don't know. Well, he had a big house. I mean, he was very wealthy, wasn't he?
He had about 4 houses.
Yeah.
Monaco, Venice, London, the country, and all that kind of stuff,
and he also, did he not collect obscure Russian literature as well, or sort of pamphlets from extreme right-wing groups or something like that?
I don't know. Certainly obscure Russian literature, that's right. Also, a huge collection, like he needed to buy another house to put them all in, of tweed suits with different pattern tweed suits, which he never wore, but he
that's the first sign of
them.
somebody who's eccentric. I mean, you strike me as somebody who would collect stuff. I mean, I know you don't have any animals, but you must have a collection of something.
I had a collection of football programmes, dating right back to, the ones that I could personally handle myself, going back to the late 1950s, when I used to go to Chester with my dad.
Yeah.
And
these were just any programmes or just Chester programmes?
Well, they were Chester ones. That's where I first went, wasn't it, before I was big enough to go to Everton. And the thing is, it had on my dad's, little marks on the back of a change of team player, no substitutes in those days.
Right.
And my dad would mark up the half-time scores on the back of the programme and all that kind of stuff, Well, and as I say, going back to sort of 1958, 1959, Chester, and the great thing about it was, Mike, that there's only 4 pages in the programme.
I was going to say, they must have been very different in those days.
Yeah, but all the adverts were for the local butcher and the local taxi service, and the local
Because now programmes,
newspaper.
I mean, when we went to that Crystal Palace game, it's a great programme they do at Crystal Palace, but it's a huge thing. It takes you about 2 days to read it.
Huge thing. And by the way, listen, I'm going to take you to Spurs, OK?
Oh, yeah.
In a couple of weeks' time, Everton are playing Spurs at White Hart Lane. Be a fantastic game, because it's the battle, really, for 4th, 5th and 6th spot in the Premier League. And a very good mate of mine has invited me along.
Has he?
I'll tell you more about that nearer the game.
Oh, good.
And he says I can take a mate.
Will it be undercover this time as well? Was it because Crystal Palace? I was worried we might be sitting in the rain. Will we be sitting outside or?
No, this is a box.
Oh, right. Okay. Is it covered then?
It's my mate, and as I said, he said to me,
"You're not going to be climbing over the railing or anything."
No. He said, "If you've got a mate, you can come with." I said, "I haven't got any mates, but I'll bring old Fatso. That's you." Okay,
yeah,
sorry about that.
Very nice. Thank you.
But that's what he knew you as. Okay?
No, it's nice when you introduce me to people like that before I meet them, and then they just think I'm some kind of layabout when I turn up.
No. He knows all about the two.
Well, shall I pencil that in my diary then, or put it in pen?
Pencil that in your
diary. Put it in pen, shall I? So you don't cancel it.
Put it in pen. Don't worry. My pal John says it's all on. Okay. And
excellent. Well, I look forward to that. And you won't be creeping about the director's box looking for Bill Kenwright and those other people, and leave me sitting there on my own.
No.
With people I don't
know.
No.
When do I do that?
Well, that's what I was told you were you were spotted doing it up at that last Everton game.
No. I don't
hugging, with your thespian friends.
No. I don't know who told you all that rubbish. It doesn't happen like
Jenny
that.
Seagrove and all those people that you hugged.
Well, that's just because my seat happens to be near where they sit.
Because if it's in London, all the thespians, presumably from Everton, will be there.
I'm going to Stevenage on Saturday.
We're
playing Stevenage in the 5th round of the FA Cup. Fourth round of the FA Cup.
And you're writing in their programme, aren't you?
Yeah, I've written a piece of the programme, and I've been invited as a guest in the sponsors' lounge.
No.
But I have to make this absolutely clear. I have paid for my ticket. I insisted on paying the full market price for my ticket.
Well,
so don't start calling me a freeloader, who's welching on the hospitality of a smallish club.
Yeah, I know,
like
but you haven't
Stevenage.
invited me to that one, have you?
No, I haven't. No, and do you know why? Because it's only a 7,000-seater stadium. It's for real football fans who follow their club week in, week out. And what we don't want is a freeloading bum like you coming along to that game just for the glory of being at a
see Everton getting knocked out of the FA Cup. Because remember when I went to Brentford with you and Brentford knocked them out of the league? Was that the FA Cup or the Capital One Cup? I can't remember.
It was the League Cup, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was called in those days, but it was the
Carling
League
Cup, I think it was.
And that was the time when Mr. Elstone, who's the secretary, the chief executive of Everton Football Club, invited me up to see what I call the gang, the Everton lads. And when I said, can I bring him with me, pointing to you, he suddenly changed his mind.
Well, that's because I was done up like a Brentford fan.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Because I was wearing a hat and a scarf and all that.
That's right. And he
thought I was some kind of hooligan.
Yeah, he did. And he suddenly changed his mind. Said, there isn't time now, Mike. See you after the game. And he rushed off before he could find out where he was going. Yeah, that's the sort of impression you have on people, Mike, at first look.
Well, anyway, what about going up to West Brom? You should have gone to that game last night, shouldn't you? It's not far away.
Well, no, because I wouldn't have got back here to see you. I might not have got back here because of the traffic and all that. It's going to be a big day for West Brom today. Why is that?
It is, because Nicholas Anelka's going to find out exactly what his punishment, or if he's going to be charged. Yeah. I suppose the punishment will come later.
For the Quinnell.
With the Quinnell thing. But you were saying last week that Pepe Mel doesn't speak any English at all, right? Yeah. Have a listen to this.
The first half, we were too open, and the second half we were too compact. Is very very important for me, the second half.
He doesn't speak English, does he?
That's a very good English for a guy who's just come to this country and he's speaking English for the first time. He used the word compact. Yeah. That's a good word. I
saw that last night after the game, and I thought if that was a team talk, you'd have to get the squad in at 10:30 in the morning, and they wouldn't get out of the room till 3:30
I think you're being very unfair,
because he spoke so slowly and with such deliberation. Immediately after he spoke, Roberto Martinez came on, held the microphone himself, headphones on, and spoke the most fluent and beautiful English. Most fluent and beautiful English you can imagine. Now, that's the way to work in somebody else's country, to learn the blinking language.
Excuse me. You're about to have a heart attack now.
I am, yeah. Learn the blinking language and get on with business in the native tongue of the people you're there with. And
that's what he's doing.
Don't start calling miles kilometres.
You see?
And don't start
goldfish. Don't start calling you goldfish.
Don't start calling inches centimetres, because in this country we're imperial.
You may be imperial, but there's another word that goes along with that, but I'm not going to use it. Mike Porky Parry will be back later on in the week. We've got lots more to do.